Yeah, the Friday edition of Mr. Relevant, presented by Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber Law Office's One Call, That's All studio in downtown Milwaukee at the Avenue. Tiny Hands, producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn with me from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison on your Friday ahead of Memorial Day weekend. Going to be a great weekend. I was just asking Joshie DiMaggio, who's with me at the Gruber Law Office's One Call, That's All studios in downtown Milwaukee. I said, you going to be by a lake this weekend? I think he said yes. So good for him. I'm happy for him. You going to be at a lake?
I said yes before you rudely cut me off.
I'm sorry. Sorry to cut you off. We got a show to do, Joshie. I can only talk about your lake so much. I hope you enjoy your lake time. Hunter, you going to be at a lake this weekend?
No, I won't be by a lake. I did want to bring something up since I wasn't on the show on Wednesday. You said something on that show.
Backdating, yes.
Yes.
What did I say?
You talked about how you felt like such a big deal because you had Maddie Hayes, our social media queen, and you had Josh there, and Ryan. Yeah, you got it completely wrong. It has nothing to do with us thinking you're a big deal. It's that we think you're incompetent and you need all of these people to get your show off the ground. So I just need to make sure that you understand where you are on the hierarchy here, okay?
No, so that's the issue, Hunter. I actually think it's because you're a big deal. I'm going to flip this on you complimentary style. You're out one day. All of a sudden, I've got 4 people working on the show when typically I just have 1. It actually means how important you are to the show. Is that an okay explanation?
No, I don't want compliments.
Joshie, do you think I'm incompetent?
Hard to find anyone more incompetent.
All right. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you guys as well. Lots to get into today. NBA playoffs. Christian Watson is figuring out his hamstring, which Jason Wilde talked about that a little bit on Wednesday's show. I do want to revisit something he said. Caleb Williams, trash. Craig Counsell coming to Milwaukee, trash. Brad Nortman, not trash. He'll join me about 20 minutes from now here in the Gruber Law Office's One Call, That's All studios. And then we'll wrap it up with a little talk around college football, college sports, everything going on there. As there's been an agreement between the Power 5 conferences and everything going on there. So we'll get into that at the end of the show as well. But before we get into all of that, though, I did see a headline pop across today that I wanted to bring up. And I wanted to do it before the end of the show because it's kind of morbid and sad. But it is something that happened. Morgan Spurlock might not be a name that means anything to anybody, but his documentary will. The documentary Super Size Me, which came out 20 years ago, was done by Morgan Spurlock. He was the documentarian, the guy that ate McDonald's for 30 straight days. He died at the age of 53. So young death. But like I remember we all had to watch that movie growing up and the effects that fast food could have on you. And he passed away earlier this week at the age of 53. Super Size Me. Hunter, you watched that movie. Did you have to watch it in school growing up? Because I did.
I didn't have to watch it. I didn't know that was a thing that like other people had to do until very recent in my life. I just thought that it was like, oh yeah, that was a movie that came out. My school never made me watch it. That's weird that they would make you watch it. Like, yeah, of course fast food is bad for you. I didn't think we needed a documentary to tell us all that. It's delicious, but I didn't need the documentary to tell me that I shouldn't eat it every single day.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, but I was surprised to see that this morning. As that it was a great documentary. Very, very informative. Joshie, what are you laughing at back there?
What's your point here? You've kind of taken us in a morbid direction, and now you're just here.
My point is, I think everybody should watch that documentary in memory of Morgan Spurlock. Joshie, have you seen it?
Yeah, of course. I didn't watch it at school, but yeah, you watched documentary. It was the biggest thing for the longest time. It was a very big deal.
It was, yeah. And I wonder...
R.I.P. to him.
R.I.P. to him, but I wonder if it had anything to do with his young death. Like, that's a legitimate question I have.
I don't think we should be speculating on it live on air.
I'm not speculating. I'm more asking the question than speculating. I'm not saying it's what killed him. I'm just curious. That's all. All right, you're right. I have led us down a morbid path. I'm going to go ahead and pivot to the NBA playoffs. Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals last night between the Celtics and the Pacers. And the Celtics ultimately win that one, no problem. 40 points for Jaylen Brown. Tyrese Halliburton leaves the game with an injury. Series is over. It was fun while it lasted. Game 1 was really fun. The Pacers showed more life than I think anybody anticipated them to. And then game 2 was all Celtics. Tyrese goes out. Jaylen Brown shows he is the better player on the Celtics, in my opinion, right? Like, Jason Tatum is capable of more things, but I think Jaylen Brown is the overall better piece in that 1-2 punch. Because this is now the second postseason in a row where we're walking away from a crucial game saying, yeah, Jaylen Brown is the leader of that team. He was phenomenal last night, but the game just wasn't. It's kind of a boring game. I was on my phone more than I actually watched the second half. And I think that series is over, especially if Tyrese, who's dealing with a similar injury, dealt with during the season that led to 10 games, him missing 10 games. If he misses any action while this series pivots over to Indiana, it might be over in 4. I would guess 5, though. I think Indiana will eventually get one, but that one's no fun. I think what we all knew, though, is the Western Conference Finals is going to be a better series. It's just sexier. Right, like Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley, Karl Anthony Towns for the Wolves, Luka, Kyrie Irving, former Bucks head coach Jason Kidd for the Mavericks. There's just more substance to the Western Conference Finals. So it does excite me quite a bit. Game 2 tonight, 7:30 on TNT. And Charles Barkley has brought his ass to Minneapolis in Minnesota. So I don't know what to expect out of Game 2. As Dallas steals one on the road in Game 1, I would hope that Minnesota is able to respond in Game 2 because we got the Anthony Edwards show. We had a really fun Game 1. I struggle with the projection of this series. It could go 7, and I hope it does, but it could also go 5. If Dallas can steal another one tonight, I don't see this thing going a whole lot longer than 5. But my hope is, and as I talked about earlier in the week, right? There's never been so much unity when it's down to a Final Four in any sport. Everybody's cheering for the Minnesota Timberwolves, so I'd like to see them get a win tonight in game number 2. Let's pivot over to the Packers. Now, we have a poll question out on Twitter at ESPN Madison, also on the YouTube chat at ESPN Madison. Who would benefit most from the Packers winning a Super Bowl? Is it Goody, is it Matt LaFleur, is it Jordan Love, or is it other? I think it's Jordan Love, but Matt LaFleur certainly has a case to be made. Mina Kimes releasing her top 10 or top essentially 32 list of head coaches in the NFL and put Matt LaFleur in the top 5. I don't know if he's there yet. I mean, when you look around the league, obviously some of those great coaches have cleared out, right? Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick are no longer coaching. But when it comes to the best coaches in the league right now, Sean McVay has a very strong resume. Kyle Shanahan has a very strong resume. Oh, yeah, by the way, Andy Reid, has a pretty strong resume. But then from there, where does Matt LaFleur fit in? I think DeMeco Ryans, probably not above Matt LaFleur, but he has a pretty good case after 1 year in Houston. I think when you look across the league, John Harbaugh is a good case. Jim Harbaugh is back with the Los Angeles Chargers. He's made a Super Bowl. Matt LaFleur hasn't done that yet. I just don't know that I'm comfortable saying Matt LaFleur is a top 5 head coach, but he can really solidify himself as a great play caller in this new generation of coaches by winning a Super Bowl. Jordan Love obviously benefits, right? Like, there's no resume builder bigger than a Lombardi trophy for the quarterback position. So Jordan Love, who is leading the poll, by the way, on Twitter right now with 40% of the vote. Matt LaFleur just behind him at 28%. Goody at 31%. So it's actually a really good poll in the field right now. You can go vote on that on Twitter/X. Actually, they updated their domain. It's now x.com. So, Hunter, does that mean we have to call it X now? Now that the domain is x.com?
I mean, probably. It's weird. It's still Twitter to me. I'm just going to keep calling it that.
It'll always be always be Twitter. But I feel like if there was a natural transition period to start calling it X, it is now that it is x.com. But anyway, that's just a side
probably. To answer the poll question, though, I am surprised that Goody isn't doing. I mean, it is tight, but I thought that this was going to be Goody running away with it. Because
really?
Yeah.
So that's where your vote lies, I assume.
Yeah, because if they win this next Super Bowl, it justifies all of the questionable drafting. It justifies the letting Aaron Rodgers go. Like, all of that was him, and he looks like a brilliant GM who got them a Super Bowl. Like, and then I think next it is Matt LaFleur, because it's again like, okay, yeah, you won 2 MVPs, but you didn't win a Super Bowl until you had Jordan Love. So I think those should be the top 2 choices. I'm really surprised Jordan Love is leading this right now.
I'm not, just because, like I mentioned, right, quarterbacks, the resume is built so far with the Lombardi Trophy, right? Like when you think of Mahomes and what he's been able to do, and last regular season wasn't his best, we don't view him as already in the GOAT conversation if he doesn't have 3 Super Bowls, which he has, including now back-to-back Super Bowls, first team to do that in 20 years. He obviously has won 3, so the debate's a little bit different for guys that have won 1. I don't know how we view Aaron Rodgers if he doesn't have a Super Bowl. He's a 4-time MVP. He's a great quarterback, unbelievable playmaker. But if he doesn't have that Super Bowl from 2010, do we view him as a all-time great, top 10 all-time guy? I don't know. Right? Like a good example right now is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson hasn't won a Super Bowl, let alone has not made a Super Bowl yet. Where does he fit all time as a 2-time MVP? He's an unbelievable rusher. He's an unbelievable mobile quarterback. He's really developed his game as a true passer as well. And I think that's what led to his second MVP last year. But he's not really in an all-time great category yet. A Super Bowl would catapult Lamar Jackson to an all-time great category. Eli Manning isn't in the Hall of Fame if he doesn't win 2 Super Bowls. So it changes the trajectory of how we remember quarterbacks, probably a little bit different than head coaches and especially general managers. But your point on Goody is a good one, right? Like moving on from Rodgers is a really hard decision. Drafting Jordan Love in the first round after an NFC Championship exit is a really ballsy decision that ultimately looks like it's going to pay off for Goody. And now, moving on from all the veterans and changing to the youth movement last year, Hunter, is a really gutsy decision that seemingly has and will pay off in the long run for Brian Gutekunst. So obviously, yes, if the Packers win a Super Bowl this year, everybody benefits from it. But who benefits most is the question. You go Goody, I understand your take on it.
Yeah, and, back to Lamar, though, is like Dan Marino didn't win a Super Bowl. When you really get into a conversation about the all-time great quarterbacks, he does come up after Joe Montana and Tom Brady. So I think there is still a level of, for a quarterback, you can have that lasting legacy in the game and be remembered as one of the greats, especially if you're somebody like Lamar who can do everything out there on the field. So he's the type of guy where he could have the legacy of, yes, you can be an all-time great and not win a Super Bowl. Jordan Love, unfortunately, he does need those rings in order to have any sort of legitimate long-term legacy other than being a guy 20 years from now where we're like, remember those couple of years with Jordan Love? And like, yeah, he was kind of fun. Like, He wins a Super Bowl and he's remembered forever. He doesn't do that, and he's bar trivia down the road.
It's a good point. Yeah, I'm curious to see how the results continue to come in. That poll on YouTube at ESPN Madison and on Twitter at ESPN Madison as well. Right now, 38% for Love, 29% for both Goody and LaFleur. So they are tied for second place. Other, only 2.7%, which I think kind of what we expected for that one, because I don't know of those 3 anybody else that would benefit more by winning a Super Bowl. Like if Aaron Jones was around, maybe you could make the case for him. But he's not around. David Bakhtiari, same thing. So I think those are the only 3 options.
Would, for the other conversation, if Jeff Hafley gets one, like he maybe gets an SEC coaching job if he wanted to go back to college. Like he gets much bigger than Boston College.
But
yeah, but like,
no, you're right.
If we're going to talk about the other, he's really the only other one that would really be able to do something off of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm curious when it comes to the results on this, how Hafley is viewed, because when you look at the 2010 Super Bowl, nobody's going, "Oh my God, thank God for Dom Capers." As good as that defense was in that Super Bowl run. Think about Tramon Williams and Nick Collins and B.J. Raji and Clay Matthews and the plays they made. And oh, by the way, I left out the Hall of Famer and Charles Woodson, who was on that defense. The defense was amazing on that Super Bowl run, but nobody, however many years later, 13 years later, is looking back and going, wow, Dom Capers really saved the day. So it's interesting. Speaking of interesting piece up on ESPN.com from Rob Demovsky on Christian Watson, who obviously has dealt the last 2 seasons with a hamstring injury. He went down to a specialist. So the University of Wisconsin-Madison received a grant from the NFL to really research hamstrings. Eric Stokes and Christian Watson, two of the players that took part really in the series and in some deeper investigation into their hamstring injuries. And Watson seemingly looks great in OTAs, rave reviews, looks completely athletic, running better than he has the last couple of years. And the reasoning behind this, and Jason Wilde mentioned this on Wednesday when he chatted with us, was because there was asymmetry in his hamstrings. So one leg was about 20, it had 20% more muscle mass than the other leg. And he's got that down to about somewhere between 7 and 10% now. Thus why he looks so good. And the reason he was looking or having issues with his hamstring was due to asymmetrical hamstrings, is my understanding, Hunter. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, that's the way I understood it, was that he had 20% more in one than the other, which is a wild percentage. Like, if you said he's got asymmetrical hamstrings, given his history, I would have said, like, oh, yeah, that if I had to put a percentage, it's like 5% difference. And now it's like a big deal because he's down to like 8 to 10% difference. Like, it's just crazy that they could be that far off.
No, you're totally right. I mean, it is a very strange story. And I talked about it on Wednesday a little bit, right? Like, if I had to put my money on one guy to really take that next step to become the Packers' true number one receiver, I'd probably put that with Christian Watson. I just think he has the ability and the tools and the tangibles to be a number one receiver and to be a true 1,000-yard guy and a real security blanket for Jordan Love. I like what Dontavian Wicks has done. I like the different skill sets that Jaden Reed brings to the Packers. So it is a fascinating conversation, but obviously it's only OTAs. You can only get so excited about Christian Watson figuring it out. But asymmetrical hamstrings, certainly nothing I've ever heard before, but hopefully he's healthy and he's a full go for 17 games in 2024. Let's go down south. We've talked a lot about the Bears the last few weeks, obviously, between the NFL draft and the NFC North being a loaded division in 2024. I think there's 3 real playoff contenders in the Lions, Packers, and Bears in the NFC North come 2024. But Caleb Williams not having a great day or really great week in OTAs, according to this tweet from the ultimate aggregator, Dove Kleiman, who tweeted this out yesterday. Bears star rookie, which, by the way, star rookie, I don't like that. I don't think you can call somebody a star rookie in OTAs. That's beside the point. Bears star rookie quarterback Caleb Williams had a, quote, really rough day, end quote, with a lot of incomplete passes and near interceptions. That, according to Nicholas Moreno, who's there and covers the Bears down in Chicago. So, first off, number one, and I said this on Wednesday, even though it's the Bears and I want to talk trash, I want to talk crap about Caleb Williams and his trajectory in the league and how he has a long way to go despite having a stacked offense and skill positions around him, it's OTAs. You can't put a ton of stock in OTAs. Like, they're drawn up for one day for the offense to succeed, one day for the defense to succeed and thrive and show different things that they have. The Bears have a good defense. They're challenging Caleb Williams. I don't think that's a bad thing. So I don't put a ton of stock into Caleb Williams struggling in OTAs. As much as I do want to talk trash, and as much as I do want to say the Chicago Bears will go ahead and ruin another quarterback, it's OTAs. I can't get too excited about it. Although, I'd rather read this headline than Caleb Williams is lighting up the Bears defense in 7-on-7s at OTAs. Yeah, I'd get excited. I wouldn't be excited about that. And as a Packers fan, of course I want to see him struggle. I want to see the Bears suck. I want to sing the jingle. The Bears still suck all the time. Of course I do. But this doesn't mean anything. But yet I'm giving it the time of day. Hunter, I'm right here, right? Like, you can't put that much stock into struggling in May. If he struggles in the preseason, certainly I will point that out. And if he struggles in joint practices, I'll point that out. But until it's a real game, or real 11-on-11s at the very least, I can't put any stock into it. I don't think it matters.
No, it really doesn't. And if anyone does put stock in it, like, I think there's an argument to be made of, like, well, guys who have typically looked good do usually succeed early in the season. Like, that does happen, and that's fine. But then you need to remember that Jordan Love didn't look good in his first couple of OTAs. He struggled early on in his career. So, like, that can happen, and then you can get better. Like, I'm more surprised when guys play really, really well as rookies right away in the offseason. Like, you're supposed to struggle. The speed is different. The guys are stronger. They're bigger. Like, you shouldn't be able to just go right in from college, even if you're playing at a power conference, and just be successful right away. That's not the way the NFL is designed to work. So, yeah, Caleb Williams should struggle right now, and that's good for him to do that as long as he's learning from it going forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, I think he's going to work out. I've said that before. I think Caleb Williams will be a good quarterback for the Bears. I don't know that he'll be great. I don't know that he'll be an All-Pro. I don't know that he'll be an MVP candidate. But I think he'll be the best quarterback they've had in ever. Right? Like, look at the Bears have a pretty sad quarterback history. They are the only team, and I think he'll be good for them. We'll see. I honestly don't know. We will see. All right, let's move on. No show Monday with Memorial Day. We're off. Hunter needs a day off, like he didn't just have one on Wednesday. So we're giving him Monday off.
Well
deserved, Hunter.
It's the Jesse Nelson school of days off. I've really adopted it. Like, it was kind of nice having that midweek day off. It splits things up really well. So
turn your microphone off.
I kind of understand it.
Turn your. I know you produced the show. Turn your microphone off. Ridiculous. Craig Counsell will make his return to AmFam Field coming up on what day is that? Monday, I think. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4-game series, Cubs-Brewers, which will be the second time that the Brewers and Cubs go to war, but it's the first time in Milwaukee. And back on opening day at AmFam Field, I perused the concourse, and I asked Brewers fans what their message to Craig Counsell is. So to keep it fresh in all of our minds as we lead up to the Memorial Day kickoff between the Cubs and the Brewers at AmFam Field, let's hear from Brewers fans back on opening day and their message to Craig Counsell.
What would your message be, CJ, to Craig Counsell, who left for Chicago?
We cannot censor this on. Are we live right now?
No, we're not live. You can censor it.
No, he's a d. I'm glad you suck.
We won't miss him, right?
No, we won't miss him. He's a bum. He wants to go to Chicago. Fine.
Not a fan. Not a fan at all.
You're a traitor. I hate you. We're going to destroy you.
Sorry for cussing. Sorry for cussing.
Sorry for cussing. Sorry for cussing. There you go. Brewers fans hate Craig Counsell. I imagine his reception will not be very pretty at AmFam Field on Monday. A lot of boos, I would guess. Oh, we'll wait and see. And it's a big series, too. Brewers still in first place. The Cubs still in second place in the NL Central. Cubs have a big weekend. Cardinals coming up beginning today, and they come to Milwaukee on Monday for a 4-game series. So their next 7 days, it's a pretty interesting stretch for Cubs Brewers. But I imagine the Boo Birds will be out at AmFam Field. All right, Mr. Relevant brought to you by Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. Hope you're spending some time in Door County this weekend. If you are, make sure you pop by Door County Distillery. The tour is amazing. The tasting's amazing. Everything they do it amazing. Local collaborations from top to bottom. I mean, it is incredible, right? Like, you're about to see the Espresso Martini. They have a collaboration with Door County Coffee in there with their coffee liqueur. Cherry vodka, cherry brandy, Door County cherries used with that. I mean, it is just incredible. Brandies, whiskeys, vodkas, they make it all. They do it fantastic, award-winning, pretty much from top to bottom as well. You can check out their website, scan the QR code. It will lead you to a huge list of unique cocktail recipes on their website, doorcountydistillery.com, as well as the local retailer nearest you. Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits. We'll take a 60-second break. When we return, punters are people too, baby. Brad Nortman joins me in studio to talk a little OTAs, to talk a little Packers, before we send him off the show prep that I will be late for Kyle, Brust and Nortman, weekdays from 2 to 5 on ESPN Wisconsin. Door County Distillery first, Brad Nortman second. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. I'm back at the legendary Door County Distillery with the legendary Beth.
Hi.
Nothing bigger right now than espresso martinis and confession. I've never had one, Beth, so I think I need you to teach me how to make one.
It's real simple. With ours, we do our Java infusion, which is our coffee-infused spirit, our vodka, some chocolate sauce, and some coconut cream, so it's dairy-free for those who can't have lactose. We're going to start with 2.5 ounces of our Java, because this is a martini, so lots of booze.
Yes.
1.5 of our vodka, about a 1/2 ounce of your chocolate syrup and your coconut cream, or cream if you prefer. Shake this for about 15 seconds.
She's a pro. I'd spill everywhere.
Strain that into our martini glass. There we go. Quick and easy espresso martini.
Time to try it. First ever espresso martinis. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's delicious. That's really good. I'm an espresso martini girly now. Yeah, no doubt.
Who isn't?
Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at DoorCountyDistillery.com. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com. We're talking about ears in the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All studio right now as my mic falls. I feels like I'm breathing out of my left ear, and Brad is giving me advice. Brad Nortman, Kyle Brust and Nortman, former NFL punter, former Wisconsin punter, joins me now on Mr. Relevant. Bradley, first off, hello.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I should probably go turn your mic up. This is actually user error. Okay. Unbelievable. Hunter, say something. Talk to the people.
Hello, people. Yeah, Brad, this is what happens when I let Strouf go to Milwaukee. He has no idea what he's doing. It's a mess. I'm going to just leave you on the screen just wondering what's going on because this is so bad. Oh, can you actually hear me now, Brad?
The problem is solved.
Yay.
Hey,
there we go.
A voice. It was great to hear your voice, Hunter Vaughn, though. Beautiful as always.
Thank you. Speaking of beautiful,
yeah, I do.
Speaking of beautiful, I found a picture of you, Brad, and we just need to share this with the world. This is amazing.
What's the story on that?
Yeah, so I can see the picture. I'm like kind of tilted. Hair, yeah. Okay, so I did I think it was the Waukesha Freeman, or I did.
That is a newspaper.
Yep, it was a local newspaper story, and they were doing a story on me for I'm going to Wisconsin and the whole thing, and so we had all these different shots of me. That's more a casual one, obviously wearing the Brookfield Central, repping BC football. It's all around the field. Sometimes they're more stoic, other times they were in action, and we probably took 20 photos. That's the photo they chose. So that one lives on forever. I'm sort of like a leaning tower of Pisa. I'm tilting forward, looking over there. My hairstyle was way different.
You look like a Hollister model.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I didn't mean it as one.
Probably what I was striving for at the time. It's interesting. So I probably had the same length hair at the time, but I just wore it differently. Straight down, classic, 2008 high school guy right there.
It's good luck. It's good luck for you.
It's youthful. Very youthful.
Yeah. Hunter, how did you find that? Just Googled Brad Nortman and went in the archives? Or what?
I mean, it was Google Brad Nortman and make it about 20 pages through Google. There's a lot
I was about to say, how high is that on Google? Because I would hope it's deeply buried.
It is deeply buried. There were a lot of articles about you and the fake punts that you guys ran with the Jags. I was surprised how many worked. So that's why I put you on here as an offensive weapon.
That's exactly what I am. I mean, who else can say they have ran for 2 first downs in college, thrown for a first down, 1 for 1 in the NFL? I think my success rate, personal success rate, 100% when it comes to offensive strategy.
Is that true?
Yeah, I personally have never had the ball in my hands on a fake punt and failed to get a first down. Not once. 3 for 3.
That's actually an incredibly sick brag.
Yeah.
I know you're bragging. It's a sick brag. But I can't even argue with it.
Well, and we had a guy shadowing us. What was the guy's name?
His name was John. He was a high school student.
Yeah, that's right. John would always trade. His favorite team was the Panthers. So in Madden, he would always trade me for Johnny Hecker because Johnny Hecker notoriously has a really good arm, high school quarterback, great punter for sure. But he has 4th downs that have failed. He has had incomplete passes. I have no blemish on my resume.
That's impressive. And who was it? Kirk Herbstreit that called you an offensive weapon?
Sure was. In the Rose Bowl.
In the Rose Bowl.
In the Rose Bowl.
Unbelievable. All right, Brad. I wanted to get your opinion as a former NFLer, and despite people giving you a hard time for being a punter, OTAs. I as a fan, I don't necessarily understand them. Right? I understand the concept. I understand it's the first time the rookies and the vets kind of get together and they get to do some light install and really get to know each other, right? Get on the field for the first time together. How important are OTAs when it comes to season success, right? Because training camp obviously is much more important because it's longer, right? It's just more time to build camaraderie, more time to understand the system and the installs. Where does OTAs come into play when it comes to season success?
Well, they're critical. Training camp is more critical, but it's like Strouf, I was an accounting major, right, at Wisconsin. But I had accounting 100 first. Then I went on to accounting 102. Then you go on to advanced accounting, right? You got to listen to some tax work, and then you got some audit work, and you go deep into financial statements later on. But you can't skip a step, right? You draw on what you learned in accounting 100, you take that to the next one, to the next more advanced class. That's exactly what OTAs are to the season in the NFL. This is your accounting 100. This is entry level. So you are building a foundation. You are learning the foundational X's and O's of game plan.
What an analogy.
I was going to land that plane of game plan, of form, of terminology, of culture, of rhythm and being crisp. And you carry that over to training camp so you can start training camp with your legs already firing, right? When you hit the ground running, literally. So it's important, and that's why when guys miss it, like Aaron Rodgers in years past, or when veterans just say, peace, I'm not going to be here, you lose a vital component. Now, it's more important for the younger guys, right? Rookies, second-year guys, and new guys on the team to learn all this kind of stuff. But it's a lot of football training without the physicality of it, and that's important so that you can introduce the physicality in training camp. And I'll be honest, when you start training camp, it's not like a college training camp where you practice for a month and then it's week one. It's like a week and a half, 2 weeks before you start preseason games. Preseason games happen quickly. So this is like almost, training camp 100 to then enter training camp 102 when training camp actually starts. So it's critical. The best teams I were on, we had near 100% attendance, and guys were bought in and locked in. You're learning the game plan, and it looks like the regular season a little bit as far as a practice schedule. Team meeting, special teams meeting, you break out into offense, defense, and you have a practice and you do film review after. It's exactly what the regular season looks like. So to get the guys in there, for the Green Bay Packers to have a 100% or roughly participation rate is critical for this young team to enter training camp fast and strong. Yeah, so that was going to be the next thing I brought up was the participation rate. Because obviously for the last couple seasons, I guess prior to last season, Aaron Rodgers wasn't showing up. And he was the heartbeat of that team, whether you like it or not, right? Like, he is the veteran leader. He was ultimately a 4-time MVP. And while he was missing OTAs and still winning MVPs, they couldn't get over that hump. Jordan Love is there despite the fact that he is, I don't want to say in a dispute, but he's in a contract negotiation. Jair Alexander is there after missing it last year. He skipped out on a $750,000 bonus last year during OTAs. He's there. So to see these guys show up after knowing what they did a year ago, which by all means, given the expectations, was an overachievement by making it to the divisional round and almost beating the eventual NFC champion 49ers. This is a team that realizes the window is open, and they're not taking it for granted. You just mentioned when your best teams you were on, and you were on some good teams, Brad. You made a Super Bowl with a 15-1 Panthers team. You had a Jacksonville Jaguars team that made an AFC championship game and ultimately lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots. What is it about a high participation rate that shows you and maybe translate to success down the road? Well, there are the obvious reasons to where you start to work with one another on the field. So, like, for instance, Jair Alexander not being there. Well, his absence changes the defense. It changes the personnel. It changes the rhythm together. And just like many other things in life, it's really only reps and time together that can build team and build cohesion. So that's the obvious one. But I think it's even more than that. I think this is what Aaron Rodgers was missing when he said, look, I don't need to be at OTAs. That's true. He's already an expert at throwing the football and the game plans and the playbook, so that's okay. But there are certain things that the young guys can only really learn from other players, right? Like, you can learn from the coaches, and the coaches are going to coach you up and they're going to get you going. But there are certain things that's player-to-player coaching, right? Mentor-mentee type relationship. And so when you have a guy like Jair Alexander show up, his impact and his presence on a guy like, Corey Valentine is critical. I mean, there are just some things you can only look at and see a vet do and be, hey, how'd you do that? And then they teach you up and they coach you up. Or how do I watch film? There's a way to watch film as a coach. There's another way to watch film as a player. You get in the film room with them and start to learn exactly what do they look for, what are the small keys and things like that. So there is a passing on of knowledge and just this is what it looks like to be a pro. And you just get exposure to that early. And to be quite honest, you're asked to grow up really quickly in the NFL. So the earlier you get that player-on-player coaching, mentor-mentee relationship, the better it is for that team in that year, the better it is for the young guys to develop quickly. So it's for all those reasons that having a high participation rate, having veterans there, is critical.
Yeah, that's a really good answer and good insight from you, Bradley. So when it comes to this Packers team, I'm fascinated on, everything, frankly, as a Packers fan, right? Like,
it's a fun team.
It's just, I worry we overvalue, and this is maybe me trying to like hide myself from heartbreak, but this is a team that completely turned it around in the second half of last year. They win a playoff game. They're in their second playoff game with the Niners, and now the expectations are there, right? This is a team that was playing with no expectations, no target on their back per se, and now they ride into 2024 with likely a very highly paid quarterback and still a very young offense and a brand new defense, by the way. They went 9-8 a year ago. I like the way their schedule shakes out. I think I sat down and did the prediction. I think I had them at 12-5. But is 9-8 with improvements still in the picture, right? Can you have the same record but still be a better team? I guess is kind of what I'm trying to ask.
Well, you can, because the NFL, the results of the game, the margin is thin, right?
So
like you can play a really good game and have 3 plays that totally ruin the game for you and you get an L, right? But you could be a legitimately better team than you were last year. There's an argument to be made that last season, one of the reasons why they were able to hang in there is because they didn't have a very hard schedule last year. Think about the quarterbacks that the Packers played last year. They weren't very good.
They lost to Tommy DeVito. Baker
Mayfield, perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. And there was a stretch of quarterbacks in October that were pretty bad, right? You got the Raiders and you got the Broncos and a struggling team without Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm not sure they were incredibly challenged last year, which is why the end of the season is so impressive to me and how well they did in the playoffs, right? The Cowboys and the 49ers, those are no jokes. So the team ended well. The question is, they have a harder schedule. I believe 4th hardest schedule in the NFL. I like the way it shakes out, but they're going to be challenged, according to last year's records. They're going to be challenged in a lot of different ways that they weren't challenged last year. And when you're a team that has the target on your back, it's hard in a lot of different ways. First of all, it's just human nature to take your foot off the pedal. It just is. You just think you got it. And in reality, you don't. And you've got 31 other teams that are striving, that are biting at your heels. And you are the now team that everyone circles on their calendar. We did it with the Packers, right? We look at the 49ers. You look at the Detroit Lions, the Miami Dolphins. Like, ooh, big game.
Texans are in there.
The Texans are a big game. The other teams are doing that for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, no doubt.
So you've got 17 other teams that are circling you on their schedule. And that's a big difference in maturity for this young team on how to approach each week like that, because you can't let up. You can't have a B performance because this other team is bringing their A performance. So when it comes to their expectations, I'm right there with you. I got them at 10 or 11, probably 11. And like most things, it's going to depend on the quarterback and the defense. What kind of Jordan Love we have to show up on a consistent basis? Because half one quarter, the first part of the season, Jordan Love, versus second part, completely different. And how does this Jeff Hafley defense look? So a lot of question marks still, even for a team trending upward. And even though we are in Wisconsin and we love to see the Packers do well, there's maybe a little bit of a chance that we overvalue them. But you know what? Everyone in the national media is valuing them high too. Very few people are saying, I don't believe in this team. Very few.
Yeah, and they don't give you a ton of reasons not to after what you saw last year. But a new defensive coordinator is a small change. And look, they've got the investment back there, and they've got some dogs back there, right? Like Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, very good football players. Xavier McKinney adding to that safety core is a very good player. But that's not a small change. You mentioned it's the 4th hardest schedule given win percentage last year, so you can only put so much stock into that. But I don't know. I'm not nervous by any means. I think this is a playoff team. I think this is a team that can truly contend, of course, assuming health, in the NFC. I wonder where the chips actually fall. Because this could be a 12-5 team. But this could also very realistically be a 9-8, 10-7 team who's fighting for the final playoff spot in the NFC. And to be honest, I don't love that. Right? Like, I don't love the idea of this team not being or having a home playoff game. Because I think that's also possible. They could knock off the Detroit Lions from the throne.
They could.
Football can't come soon enough.
No, it can't. I love football. I love the excitement it brings. Talking about the Green Bay Packers just gets you excited. But that's what's so interesting about this team. You looked at like the Lions last year, for instance. They were pretty consistently good. They had a couple of small blips, but they were pretty consistently good.
Yeah, they were.
And were knocking on the door. This Green Bay Packer team was not consistently good.
Not even a little bit.
So it makes you wonder, like anything else in life that's inconsistent. If you have a friend that's like sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes argumentative, sometimes gets along with people, you just don't know what you're going to get. It's a little bit what the Green Bay Packers gave us last year. It's like sometimes it's like this team could beat anybody, and I mean anybody. They did. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions back-to-back weeks. And other times they lose to Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants. Yeah. NFL is a week-to-week league, but this Green Bay Packer team, I think primarily because of their youth, you really can lose to anybody, and you can really beat anybody.
So the question I have for you, because you just have a better perspective on it than a lot of us that didn't play the game at a high level like you did, is the Jordan Love thing, and not the contract thing. I've got contract fatigue already. Where are you at?
Already?
I already have contract fatigue.
I think it's still fascinating. The grappling, the posturing, and I mean, I will get it for sure, but it's a seismic shift for the franchise when they actually do it based on money, based on commitment, everything. So I find it fascinating, but I'll get to your point.
You have your financial background.
Sure.
That probably helps with that. And you've been in rooms like that. So I guess I understand why you'd be fascinated with it. I'm just like, we've talked about it for 4 months now, and it probably will be another 2 before we see a deal. But when it comes to Jordan Love and what he did at the end of last year, can we just go ahead and assume and call him a franchise quarterback and an all-time, you're not an all-time great, but like one of the better quarterbacks in the league, or does he still have to prove it to a point? Because he did it for, I don't know, probably 10 games, I would say, in a row last year where it was like, whoa, this guy's got it. But now, for me, what I need to see is it consistent. Like, I need to consistently feel like I have the better quarterback on whoever the Packers face. I need to feel that they have the better quarterback.
Well, it begs the question, how much of a sample size do you need in order to declare a guy good or not, like capable of whatever designation you're putting on him? This time it's franchise quarterback. There have been countless quarterbacks that have had a good 1 game, 3 games. It's really hard to have 10 good games in a row. And I mean really hard. There's very few people. I went back and did this on KBN, but the long story short is I went and looked at all quarterbacks that had like one great season. And I would consider Jordan Love having a great season. Basically, the long story short is almost everyone that had a great season went on to have really good careers. And you have to be an outlier to have a great season and then no longer have a good career. About half of those guys just did okay. They went to different teams and did okay. Other times they were busts. But I could only find really 10 guys of the hundreds that have had great seasons and then didn't follow it up with at least a really good career. So the stats would tell you that Jordan likely, if you're able to do that, even just for 10 games for 1 season, you're likely going to have a good career. Sometimes it's injury, sometimes it's system, sometimes the dude just got hot. I think Jordan Love, he looks the part. He's clearly very coachable. It's amazing the growth that he's had from a rookie, even a couple of years ago, to who he is now. He's coachable. He runs the offense of Matt LaFleur. He's a leader. He throws the ball. He's got courage. He's got cojones to throw the ball in some of these things. A lot of times, guys are scared to make those throws. So, to me, I've seen enough. I've seen enough out of those games. It should get harder for him throughout the year. Teams get film on him. Probably regresses to a mean. The opposite happened. He got better. The more teams got film on him. So I'm not sure he's going to be that guy forever. That's an MVP-like stretch. Maybe he'll have a couple of those seasons. But he's closer to that than he is the first guy that we saw in the first half of the year.
That is the best way to possibly send everybody into Memorial Day weekend that you could have possibly come up with.
Hopefully it's a bit of encouragement, optimism. Oh, yeah. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody.
That fired me up. Brad, appreciate the time, buddy. We'll do it again soon. Get the show prepped so I don't get yelled at.
Will do. Thanks for having me on.
Kyle, Brust and Nortman, weekdays 2 to 5. You can listen to Brad more in about 45 minutes on ESPN Wisconsin with Kyle Wallace, and really, really good producer of that show. That's me.
I don't know about that.
In about 45 minutes. All right, Hunter, watch your mouth. All right, as we always do, you learn something new every day. I learned something new. It's time to wrap up the show with what Strouf Learned. And it's a fascinating one, is the NCAA and the Power 5 conferences, which still includes, for some reason, Hunter, I found this part interesting, the Pac-12. The Pac-12 still involved in this, as they've essentially allowed universities to directly pay players for the first time. Now, it will include revenue sharing that will allow schools to essentially share $20 million per year to pay players to play and use it as a recruitment tool. And this is all in the NIL era, which I think a lot of people went, wait a minute, I thought that already happened when NIL was passed. Schools were not allowed to directly pay players up until yesterday. So it is a fascinating new tweak to the NIL transfer portal era we live in within college sports, but amateurism is no more, right? Collegiate athletes will never be treated the same, and that was already the case, but this is a definite, line in the sand where this is the new era, right? This is professional sports now, just at the collegiate level. And it allows for at least a little bit more fair play. But your varsity collectives, or your collectives essentially, the name of the one at Wisconsin is the Varsity Collective, will still exist. And they will still pay players on behalf of the university. And they will still go ahead and garner endorsements and sponsorship opportunities for athletes. But schools can now directly put players on the payroll, which is a little bit different than everything we've experienced within NIL. I think it's an ultimate good. I think it is a net positive. But it just creates a little bit extra layer of messiness within this state of college athletics. It's a good thing, but there still aren't that many rules in place. This just allows for revenue sharing essentially between the main four conferences, as the Pac-12 is no longer for the most part. And Notre Dame, by the way, also involved in this as a member of the ACC. So I'm fascinated by what this means. This also is a settlement that really kicked this up. So the NCAA is paying almost $3 billion over in damages over the past decade to past and current athletes. So all of this is just really, really fascinating to me. The revenue sharing, by the way, will begin not this year, but the following year in 2025. Hunter, go ahead. I know you've got opinions, as you always do on anything college sports.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of happy that they did this. Like, I wish there were more like regulation and guidelines around it, but it's the fact that they're saying, you know what? We know eventually this was probably going to land us in court. So let's get ahead of it. Let's start doing something now to avoid even more court dates and even more court hearings. You know, more locally here in Wisconsin, I host, since you went over to Milwaukee, I host with Dennis Sumrau, our Prep Mania show. And on there, we talked about the fact that the schools voted for NIL at the high school level. And the argument constantly from the schools that were in favor of it was, we don't want to have to deal with this being in the courts. We don't want to have Congress or the Senate tell us this is what you have to do, and then we have to react. So anytime that a governing body like this, when it comes to the NIL world and paying athletes, are at least getting in front of it and saying, we're going to figure this out first before we're forced to, because if they're forced to, it's going to be even more of a mess than it already is, which I know is hard to believe, but I'm really happy that they're at least saying, you know what, let's figure this out now and at least get going forward instead of just like sitting on our hands and waiting, and then we're shocked that there's a $50 million lawsuit happening or something like that.
Yeah, that's really well said. And obviously, I know you're fired up, as we talk about almost every week, about the NCAA 25. Is that the name of the game, NCAA 25?
Yep, it is.
Release coming out in July. Players were paid to include their name, image, and likeness on that. And we made the joke on Kyle, Brust and Nortman last week with Brad. Somebody went into the, I think it was 2011 version of the game and added all the stats and information. And Brad was like a very highly rated punter in this game. I think he had an 86 overall his senior season. But he didn't get paid to include the name, image, and likeness. It just said punter number 98. Now it would say Brad Nortman, punter number 98. So, I think this is all good. I mean, none of this is surprising. It's just interesting in the way in which, again, it came about, similarly to when NIL was allowed 3 years ago. I'm just curious to see what, always with NIL and anything that comes to do with money in college athletics, what the trickle-down effect is. So we will continue to see. All right, big thanks to Bradley for jumping on. Big thanks to Tiny Hands and Joshy for running the show. As always, hope you have a phenomenal Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy the 3-day weekend. Be safe. Don't make stupid decisions. I'll see you at Bratfest in Madison, maybe. I'll be out there on Saturday. I'll be eating brats, having a few drinks for my friends at Door County Distillery, listening to some of the music. Can't wait for that on Saturday. I'm packing this weekend, so wish me luck on that one too, Hunter. I hate packing. I haven't moved yet.
Oh, it's the worst.
So, I got to pack up the Madison apartment as we get ready to make our exit and officially move over to Milwaukee. So enjoy the weekend. We're back with you next Wednesday beginning at 12:30 on the ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channels, and of course available with a fresh new logo wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand, etc. is where you can find Mr. Irrelevant, which is presented by Door County Distillery. Talk to you Wednesday. Have a great weekend. Peace.